What's up, everybody? Very special version of the podcast today. It's just me today. And we're going to be going over everything for the FNCS Globals in Copenhagen. I hope you guys enjoy this one. Make sure to leave a review on wherever you're watching, YouTube, Spotify, Apple. I really appreciate you guys tuning in and listening. I hope you've gotten tons of value, lots of good conversations, and only more to come. But let's get right into it. I'm going to tell you everything that we're going to cover today, and then we're going to go through it. It may take a while. I may ramble on about certain things, but it's just to help you guys understand where my head is, what my expectations are. So, going to give you my general thoughts for the event. We're going to talk about, if you're in Copenhagen, what are some things I like to do. Then the meeting of this event, some storylines we should watch out for. We're going to go for a format recap because this is different than any other tournament we've had. Teams expected to reach the day two, or I guess it's technically day three on the finals, which is Sunday, because we have a new upper lower bracket and then a finals on the Sunday. Teams that I think are going to win it, and the teams that I think are supposed to do well and will do well. We'll go over some surprise picks, talk about some different regional things. We've had a ton of new signings as well, so just going to go over some of those, some new players and teams that jumped into the space, and some that are still to come, because some have yet to be announced and we've heard about those. Lastly, just going to cover some overall expectations and what I think may happen after the event, and we'll kind of go into much more than that after the event. We'll do a post analysis as well. If you guys like this episode, make sure to comment or let me know on Twitter at somebody's gun if you like the episode, because then we will do more like this. But let's dive right in. So, general thoughts going into the event. This is the biggest Fortnite event we've had since the World Cup. The FNCS Invitational last year was huge. This is even bigger. This is on a stage like we have never seen before. The Invitational was a little wonky with players and teams not fully getting invited based on where they finished. This team, the structure was set at the beginning of the year, and now it continues throughout the entire of the year. And this is the culmination of 1 year's worth of some amazing Fortnite. So I'm really excited to see how this turns out, because this is arguably the greatest Fortnite lobby we will ever see up to this point. Hopefully it only continues to get better. We saw the loot pool that got leaked, and then it was wrong, and then it was fixed. So basically, it's just the current loot pool that players are playing with in tournaments. We know that there is Siphon. FNCS is the only thing left with Siphon. Hopefully that doesn't continue and we get Siphon in all the game modes next year, because I personally do not like playing the game mode with Siphon. And lastly, I think this is huge for the general media consumption of Fortnite. We haven't had an event at this stage, and it seems like last year there was a lot of other global events going on during the Invitational. I think Rocket League, Apex, Rainbow Six all kind of had big events going on at the same time. I'm pretty sure this weekend is just Fortnite, so I'm interested to see what kind of media outlets pick this up, what kind of attention this gets in the global media and outside of just traditional gaming esports media that would have covered Fortnite anyway. We just had the trophy released. I leaked that. Shout out to the media team at Epic Games. Really appreciate them sharing that. So let's just take a look. I think it looks sick. I would have liked this to be a little different than the trophy last year, because it just looks like a gold version of last year. Still made by Swarovski. I don't know. Anyway, it looks sick. If you guys are listening on Spotify or Apple, there is a version on YouTube. You can see this. It is worth taking a look at. So it's gold and diamond, which is beautiful. And we'll see. I mean, it in itself looks like a very expensive trophy. So I'm interested to see what team gets to hold this at the end of the day. I'm so excited to see that. That trophy hold is a moment we all remember. Cammy and Seti last year. We'll remember whoever wins this year. So beautiful looking trophy, really well done. Would have liked to see some uniqueness, but nonetheless, I can't hate on this, because this in a vacuum, I would have thought would be awesome. So, getting a little sassy because I like new things. Anyway, So let's dive into some of these storylines. First of all, I think the biggest one is some of the top contenders. We have Queasy and Vino versus Cammy and Seti. These two, ever since last year, have been going back and forth. We heard Queasy talk about it on the podcast in a previous episode where he pretty much said he told him he wouldn't talk to him if they killed them at Invitational off spawn and won the tournament. So there is some stakes. It does seem like the beef is kind of heating up. We've seen these players get a little feisty back and forth earlier this week or last week during the Duo Cash Cup. We saw Queasy and Veno get landed on by Cammy and Seti, just kind of going for it and, talking some smack back and forth. But I like this. I really like players kind of showing their emotion, getting excited, and getting ready to kind of face the top competition. And both these teams, in my opinion, are two of the top 3 or 4 teams in this lobby. I would expect them very much to be at the top of the leaderboard. We'll talk about that later, but this is the big one going in as far as like the big rivalry between two specific teams. Now, there's always going to be other things, and I think for the general population, we're going to have EU versus NA. That's kind of always been at these big lands the primary rivalry. We have all the EU fans saying, oh, EU's the best, we're the best, blah, blah, blah. And then you have NA saying, no, we're the best, screw you guys. Overall, I think it's, fair. I think both teams, both sides, both regions have a fair point. Recently, it's been the EU boys that have won this. At first, it was Bugha showing everybody was good. But at the same time, now it's time. We've been far enough into this. The teams need to show up. And I think the players understand that they're repping more than themselves. And maybe some of them don't. But I think at the end of the day, you have to prove that your region is better. And hopefully some of the smaller regions get involved in this too, because I always love a little more smack talk than less, as long as it's kept to like, there's a 1 to 10 of smack talk. I think going to like a 7, maybe an 8 is okay. Once we get past an 8, you start calling people like, I don't know, we're not going to go there. But once you start getting to a certain level of smack talk, it goes too far. And hopefully we see like a 5, a 6 smack talk between some of the players, some of the regions. I think it'll be interesting because we don't have that day to day. Now, the other big storyline that I'm looking for, and this is going into like the overall meaning of this event, because arguably the person that wins this event could be considered the greatest Fortnite player of all time. I think they will be considered the greatest Fortnite player this year because this is the culmination of the year. So I think there's some exceptions. Maybe a couple players haven't really proved themselves enough to say they've been the best this year, even if they win it. Although you could argue the other way. Nonetheless, we could see a shift among the GOAT conversation within Fortnite. Obviously, Bugha and Tayson to me are like top. They're the only two I think are currently in the conversation. Besides them, there is kind of 2 others that creep up there. One is going to be Queasy. The other one is going to be Epic Whale. I think both of them are kind of near the GOAT conversation, but I don't think they're in it yet. And I think if they either wins this event, that puts them into that conversation just because they've won a bunch of FNCSs. Now they've won a global LAN, and they've done everything necessary to put themselves on that level. Now, if Bugha or Tayson win, I think either of them solidify themselves as the GOAT, at least at the moment, right? And now you can have a lot of fun conversations that come with that, but they have to win this event first. So that could shift things, right? Then we have the smaller regions, and we have to look at like which of these smaller regions are going to perform well. Historically, it's been 2 regions. Asia has done the second best of the smaller regions, and then Brazil or South America has done the best of the non-NA EU regions. And I think that'll continue here. I mean, Pegazine Kitos finished 5th at Invitational. Zeet and KBR, they finished right outside of the top 10. I believe it was 11th at Invitational. They were in the top 10 during day one, had a phenomenal day one. And then Zagu and Meram also had a really good day one from Asia. So first two teams were from Brazil. Next two are from Asia. I think that will continue. Zagu is a player that I have very much faith in to be competitive in these events. And then I also think Pegazine and Kitos continue to play phenomenally. A lot of the Brazilian teams, to me, look like they're going to be able to move on. Granted, not everyone can, so we'll see exactly where that winds up. And I think it'll come down to a lot of like drop spot management where people are able to land. So have to see how that works. And then last storyline I'm looking at here is we know one of the players is playing solo because his teammate was disqualified because he was a Russian citizen. Curb his duo was disqualified. The rules state that he is going to have to play as a solo, but now an Asia player is going to also be playing as a solo. So Wixie is a player that qualified for Asia. Curb or Kirby, I don't know. It's Curb 1, KIRB 1. He is currently playing as a solo, and there's a chance the two could play together. I don't know. Based on the rules, they can't. Based on the rules, they're both going to have to play as a solo, but maybe Epic makes an exception. I don't know if they even can speak a common language, so that would be really interesting. If neither of them can even communicate with each other, how does that work? But I don't know. It'd be interesting. Hopefully, I would much rather those two play together than have to play as two individual solos, because I don't see either of them qualing out of the bracket stage if they're able to. All right, now let's go to a format recap, because I'm talking about the bracket, talking about what is going on. So let's take a look. This is from a blog post at the beginning of the year. This is how this is all going to break down. So we have 3 days of competition. First day is upper bracket. Second day is lower bracket. Third day is grand finals. I'm just going to call it finals because we don't need to throw a grand on it. It's just extra words. Day one is all 50 teams that qualified through FNCS. The top 25 duos are going to be moving on and playing in finals. The bottom 25 duos are going to then play again on Saturday. So it starts on Friday, that's upper bracket. Saturdays, then lower bracket. Lower bracket will have the 25 teams from last chance, and then also the 25 teams that didn't qualify on day one. Again, we're going to play 5 matches. So both bracket stages are only 5 matches. Then the next day, on the second bracket day, lower bracket, those teams are going to compete 5 matches. Top 25 move on. So we got 25 duos advancing on day one, 25 duos advancing on day two. And this does give an advantage to the teams that qualified through FNCS, although I don't really know that it's enough of an advantage. I feel like it's kind of strange that half the lobby on day two is from last chance. That's a lot to me. I would have liked to see that be maybe 10 duos, and I don't know. It's weird. Queasy and I talked about it during the qualifiers. I also talked about it with Bizzle in the previous podcast. If you guys want to listen to those conversations, they're available. It feels weird that we just played a year's worth of qualifiers and then we're playing a qualifier right before the grand finals event. So I hope this works out. But then on Sunday, the last day, we'll talk about finals. It's only 6 games. It's strange that the entire year, pretty much all of competitive history, the final stage is a 2-day, 6 games each day format. I think it's okay in some aspects, but I also don't really like this. I love to see teams be able to make adjustments, be able to VOD review, come back better on day 2. I think some teams are phenomenal on day 2. They do their homework, they come back strong, and they do their work. Now, I don't know. I don't get to choose this, so ultimately not my place, but it is what it is. Hopefully it all works out. There's no problems. Now, let's talk about the prizing. Obviously, we looked at the trophy, And let's look at the cash because there's a lot of cash involved. 4 million bucks in total going to this event. First place gets a mil, so 500 grand a piece, US dollars, 650 for second. And you guys can read the rest or find it if you're listening to this. Everyone that is qualified to this event makes at least $4,000 or $2,000 a piece. All of the prizing from this point out, I'm going to talk in total, and just know that it's split between a duo. So if you qualify to the grand finals, you're going to get 10 grand. That is a solid upgrade, almost double what you get for qualifying. So 50 teams will get 10 grand. The bottom 25 teams will only get 4 grand. I say only, but you get a free trip to Copenhagen. You get a week in a hotel. It's way more than that. First place, huge. I really like the kind of breakdown of this. The only thing that I would complain about is I wish it like further broke down after 9th place, because 10th to 15th is all the same amount of money. I don't think those are the same as far as what we're going to see on the leaderboard. I think 10th and 15th are very different as far as like performance base. Then 16th through 20th is the same. So I just wish it was like 10th, 11th, 12th. Like each place kind of had increasing money amounts that came with it based on how well you did or how poorly you did. So teams, I don't know. There's obviously a difference on the leaderboard, so there should be a difference in the prize pool distribution. Now let's look at scoring. So we have a 65-point victory royale. So 65 points for the Vic Roy. Start getting placement points at 25th, and each elim is 4 points. So if I pull up the calculator real quick, 65 divided by 4, that's 16.25. I think this is pretty even, pretty solid balance as far as elims for 16 and a quarter elims equal the victory royale points. I think that's pretty solid. We also have mid-match objectives. So forecast tower is 3 points, and Rift Island is going to be 15 points. So just some more points that you can gain. I think that Rift Island is going to play a huge factor. I mean, if we look at any leaderboard, 15 points swung either way is going to be huge. Plus, we know there's additional loot that comes with that. So interested to see how exactly that plays out. We know there's already a ton of teams that love to play for that, but even there's teams that haven't shown their hand likely are going to go for it as well. And this is for both day 1, day 2, and day 3, both brackets, both the finals. All the scoring is the same, and that's pretty much it. So let's take a look. We have all our qualified players. This is on the competitive.fortnite.com website. If you want all this information, it's really nice. It has all this together. So I'm going to go major by major. I think that's just an easier way to look at it, and we can kind of talk over the various teams. Major 1, granted, I'm going to put I have bias. I think everyone has bias. And I will be showing bias during this because I don't watch as much other region Fortnite besides EU and NA. So I'm ignorant. I want to get that out there. I'm not perfect, and I hope I'm wrong because it's only better for Fortnite. It's only better for the game if other regions continue to compete. That being said, Middle East and OCE have historically not shown up come big events at LAN. So based on historic trends, I'm going to say that continues. Now, like I just said, I hope it does not. I really would love to see a team perform very well from one of those regions. I think it only makes the game more intriguing. It shows players in those regions they can compete. Nonetheless, got that qualifier out of the way. Major 1, Merstash and Tayson. I think they are one of the best teams. Let's actually look at a drop map. I'd rather do it this way. Merstash and Tayson landing over here at the North's Slap Factory. I think they qual. I mean, Tayson easily should. We're just going to actually look at this instead of going qualifier by qualifier. That's dumb. So if you guys are listening, I'm looking at a drop map. I'll talk through what I can, but ultimately I can't talk through everything. Now, when we see some of the teams and some of the areas that are going to be more contested. Center of the map is super conned. Center of the map is going to be crazy. I think it's going to be really hard for some of these teams, especially contested, to do well. Some of those teams that I think should do well, but are going to struggle because they're contested. Apollo Sphinx, Vanyak Karmi. Those are the big ones. I think Ritual could do well. I don't know how exactly they've been doing recently. And I think one of the big things that comes down to is like, how much has these teams played? How much practice have they put in? Are these teams constantly grinding? Are they playing scrims? Are they looking for the ability to get better, understand the meta? Have they figured out things that other teams might not have? I don't know. I really don't. We'll find out on game day, especially because it's only a single day format. You can't come in unprepared. The teams that aren't prepared aren't going to do well. So let's talk through contested POIs first. Kanata Agers, Thomas Malabuka, both teams arguably the best in their region. Kanata Agers just won their first FNCS. Kanata won his first FNCS after qualifying to every single one. I think that would be an awesome story to see him make it. And I think between the 2 days, both these teams will qualify. Unless they both don't qualify on day one, then I think they both don't qualify on day two. Because whatever happens on day one, I think these two are going to continue. They're pretty adamant in the way they play Fortnite, although a lot more on the line. They could figure something else out. Trulex Chicho, I think this is an easy qual team. They've been playing so well as of recently, doing the most of everything, and just look like a good team. Trulex, so unappreciated as a Fortnite player. He doesn't necessarily win all the tournaments, but he consistently plays well. To me, he's Kanata of EU, like pretty regularly a guaranteed top 10 in FNCS, but because he hasn't won, not considered one of the greats. He's not as bodacious and outgoing as a Kanata, so less spoken about, but still one of the great players. Taysom Mustache, Trulex, Chicho, I think are going to be two of the teams playing in there, and we'll just stay on this right side of the map. Yamzo Rise should qualify as well. Excuse me. So we're going to go ahead and use this. I'm just going to put the teams in the top 50 here. So that way I can keep track of what I'm saying. And shout out to Blaze from Elite for putting this together. So Taysom Mustache, Trulex Chicho, Yamzo Rise. Those are our first three. We get 50 teams, so it's going to be a lot. Let's go back over to our drop map here. Now, staying on the right sides, we have Nutty and Gaberza from Brazil contesting Bugha and Threats at Sanguine Suites. I think there's more than enough loot for these two to split this. And I think Bugha, more than anyone, understands how to play this as just a general lobby. So very much expect a Bugha qual. We will throw him in there. Bugha Threats and Ager Sphinx, as well as Malabuka Thomas. I think all those teams will qual. And going back to our drop map, I don't know anyone from Brutal Bastion. We'll come back to this. I think that may be a conversation later. Then we're going to stay on the right side. Bolts and Thoric. I don't know. I feel like this is probably a day two team, a team that qualifies on day two. And I think they're better than 49 other teams. I think they should qualify, so we'll throw them in there. Then, before we switch back to that screen, Anon and Suns, I am very skeptical that any team out of Naughty Nets is going to do well. I think Anon and Suns have a chance, but ultimately Bolts and Thoric are going to be gatekeepers of them, and I think they've done a good job gatekeeping whoever lands down here. So you kind of have to hope Bolts and Thoric qualify on day one, so that way you could clear some space, be able to qualify. Queasy Veno, easy. So let's go ahead, throw a few of those teams in there. Queasy Veno. Where are Bolts and Thoric? Here we go. Source and Yumi, I think, is another team that will qual. Throw them in there as well. Source is kind of like that new guy on the block that I think this is kind of a coming out party for him and his duo. Yumi's been pretty solid for a while now. All right, then rotating around, we got Acorn and Cold contesting Vico and Pink. Again, these are two of the best teams at the moment in their respective regions. I think they both could do well. I don't know if they both will do well. I would be hard pressed not to see an Acorn and Cold on finals day, but ultimately that might happen. I'm going to put both of them in because I feel like they'll be able to figure something out in this. Although Vico and Pink, I would argue, are the better off-spawn team. I think between the 2 days, both these teams will be able to make it. So there are... It's 11 teams. We're about a quarter of the way there. Let's see. I think King and Phaser out of Brazil, that's a team that's been playing really well. We're going to throw them in. I think they are pretty guaranteed. And, well, I want to see Cal Gamer and 7-Man perform. Just don't see it happening. Maybe the off-spawn works. Maybe they do win off-spawn, but I don't know that they do better than that. Camiseti, Datus, and Stain. I think this is, for me, with my bias, obviously. I think Cammy and Seti, easy qual. Where are they, though? Am I blind? Here it is. They weren't in order. All right. That's another team. I think they are one of the best. And Bakiokas, dogs. I think this team easily, not easily, but they get one of the Rift Islands, and I think they will have probably 2 good games out of the 5, but I think their highs are so high that 2 good games will qualify them. And I think during the last FNCS, they showed themselves, they shouldn't play like bitches like they did at the beginning of last FNCS. I think they outthought themselves. And then on day 2, they said, fuck it, let's play the game like we know how. And it worked out really well for them. So I expect them to come into this tournament playing like they want to play rather than being afraid to play how they should play. And what I mean by that's playing aggressive, going for Rift Island, going for their caches. This is a team that is very momentum driven, and I think that will continue for them. Cooper Miro, yes. Vanyak Karmi, Polo Sphinx. I think all those guys in the middle, Polo Sphinx, Cooper Miro. Where is Vanyak Karmi? I wish I could search. Oh, here we go. I think both those teams are good enough. Even if they're splitting loot, I think center of the maps are strong. They'll make plays, and they will get Rift Island between the 2 days. So expect for them to continue it. I do want to PH Zin, Kitos. I think that's one of the teams from Brazil that will do really well. The other team, Frosty and Way, think they'll come in prepared. Peppo and Zagu, another team that I really expect to do well from Asia. We have 2 teams, Clax, Wixie, and then there is Curb One and Fire Hunter. So allegedly Clax isn't going to be playing. We know Fire Hunter is not going to be playing. So these 2 are going to be playing solo. So I don't expect either of them to qualify. If they play as a duo, still don't really expect them to qualify, but who knows? I mean, anything can happen. But I highly doubt that they're coming into this without having played together. I don't even know if they could speak to one another. All right. If I have to, I'm going Suns and Anon. I think they're the best team out of OCE. I'm very hesitant to put any team in from OCE because, they just haven't performed at these events, but we'll see. Nan's a good kid, able to meet him. Really hope to see him do well. Just looking around the leaderboard, or not leaderboard, the drop map. Dukes and Edgy, Ping Kyrie. This is an area of the map I think all these teams right in the middle of this map are going to have problems. I think they won't have enough time to do what they need to do, which is loot, establish a position, and then get surge tags. I think they're going to be caught in the weeds. And honestly, I'm going to say that none of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams are going to qualify out of here. A team that I do think pretty much every team in the area, I think, is going to be able to take good advantage of this. So like a Robin and Axe Force, I think that's going to be a team that goes in and bullies those people in the center. So we're at 22 teams. We're getting there. Zagu already put in Repulse Jace. I think there's enough loot. I mean, we could see how much floor spawns. Someone's going to be able to get the vault. It's a lot of loot in this area. Now, going up top left, QNDX Rapid. Don't really see it happening. Every time that I've seen, granted, Rapid had to play with, I believe it was Andalex or Kanata last year. It was a fill. Anyway, I believe he played with Andalex because then Kanata played with Mac. Yeah. So Rapid played with Andalex, did not perform well. Granted, that duo didn't have the experience playing together. Nonetheless, don't really see it happening. I do want to give, I think Muzz and Paper right now are playing like the best team in North America. And I don't say that lightly. I don't say that just because I'm trying to hype them up. I think that's just what I've seen. I think this team is phenomenal. They will continue to play well. And that's that. Then some other teams, Gragas Chari, Pingu, and 916 Gon. Don't see either of these teams doing well. I think Bryce and Chubbs, if they can handle the pressure of this lobby, can do very well. They're a solid team. They will perform solidly if the nerves don't get to them. I don't know enough about them to say one way or another. And I think that could be said of almost every single duo in this lobby. So I'm saying this for them, but that's also my ignorance, because I really don't know them super well. So let's I'll save that for later. Now, Baka and Pars, while this says they're getting contested by Misha and Tini, I am led to believe that Misha and Tini are going to do a similar strat to what they did during the last FNCS and land in random spots, pick people off. And I think Misha and Tini will qualify doing that, as crazy as that is. So we're at, what is this, 22? This is 25. So right now, this is our day 1 qualifiers. If we look at the day 2 map, I think we see a lot of teams that are going to be coming in that also can perform well. I think Giannis and Reason stand out as... Let me double check before I say that. Yeah. They stand out as the best team in this lobby to me as far as name value goes. Peterbot, Bila right up there as well. I think both these teams are going to do phenomenally well. So let me put them... I'm just going to put this in a separate column for you guys watching. Just know this all means the same thing. It's just for me to understand 25 day 1, 25 day 2. Who's the other team? Oh, Peterbot, Bila. Where are you guys? Here we go. So the first 2 teams that I think qualify. Looking at the day 2 map, there's going to be pretty much no one in that chaos besides Curb and then Hen and Vasky. I really like Hen. I think he's a great player. I think he played really well day 2 at LAN last year. So I think the nerves, him and Vasky, are going to do well. Let's put them in. I think they'll be completely all right. And a lot of this, as much as I want to like break this down, a lot of this is going to be determined who performs on day 2 based on who performs on day 1 and where the open space is. certain teams are going to switch up. So while this map says it is what it is, ultimately I think teams are not going to be landing in these areas and going to be figuring something else out. Now, there isn't really anyone else that stands out to me like as a must qual. If I look at Shattered Slabs, we already have 2 teams contesting this, and then we have Death and Tahi coming in the next day. I don't see that going well. I think if Cammy and Seti can qual, and then Fatch and Pamstu come in the next day, that will work. Also, super biased, big fan of Fatch and Pamstu. I think they'll do all right. If I'm going to pick any Middle East team, probably going to go FHD and Hero. I think they will come through. Honestly, I think we'll get 2 of those teams that come through. And I think Adapter and FKS will be the other one. Just believe that someone has to do it. Not that like that's poorly worded. I believe there are a couple of teams in the Middle East that will do well enough, is what I'm trying to say. And I think FKS and Adapter are one of those teams. And then the other team, obviously, is FHD and Hero. Plus, if we look at the map, highly doubt Queasy and Veno play on day 2. So FKS and Adapter should be able to get the bottom of the map. We also picked a bunch of those bottom map teams to do well. This is probably a team that everyone wants me to talk about, Clix and Epic Whale. Well, I think them qualifying for finals and doing well would be good for the game and good for the competitive atmosphere in total. I don't know that I see it. I don't know that this team has what it takes, and I don't know that Mega City is really that good of a POI. Now, granted, there's going to be teams that have to do well and have to do poorly. We'll come back to that because I think they're a team that might not do well. Just be given circumstance. They have 5 games. Everyone has to remember you only have 5 games to qualify if you are coming through last chance qualifier. So makes it much more difficult. That being said, Quanti and TK, that is a team I expect to qualify. I would expect the Slap Factory to be fully unconned after day 1, and then all these teams coming in on day 2 will refresh it. Vortex Belusi should have this by themselves because, as we know, it looks like Wixie's playing by himself. So expect Wixie just to go grab something random. This entire piece of the map, let's see. Who's landing over here? So someone will be able to get this. Don't know exactly who it is. I think on day 2, I'm putting Bryson Chubbs in there. I'm disrespecting Dukes and Edgy, so we'll throw them up there as well. Blaha and Mixon, where do they land? I feel like they're a center map team. Am I wrong on that one? Are we just not seeing this? Are they a day 2 team and I'm... Oh, no, they're up here. I think this team's good enough. They've pretty regularly shown consistency at a high level, so expect them to do well. Mr. Savage Vidal, this is kind of like the Clix Epic Whale of EU. Although I do think that they have their spot down, their game plan down in a grand finals lobby a little bit better. So we're going to throw them in. I do think this is with an asterisk, I would say, because if Suns and Anon don't qual and they're contesting at Naughty Nets, neither team is making it out of there. I don't think you could be contested at Naughty Nets and make it out in a 5-game lobby. So let's continue to roll. Gripe and Flixie, I think this is a good team. Kind of like up and comers, not really anymore, but like this year they have been. I think they've shown enough. Vortex Belusi and the Frizzy and Howley. Are they a day 2 team? Doesn't look like it. Where are they at? They are somewhere. I'm struggling to find people here. All right. Anyway, I'm gonna do a lot of this now on name value, and I apologize for that, but I simply don't know enough about all 150 players in this lobby to make educated decisions. I do think we'll see a couple more Brazil teams, so Nutty and Gaberza, especially if they get unconned after day one, will do well. Darg and Raru, I believe this is GTE Dog, who used to play in NA, is over in Asia right now. I may be wrong, but I believe that's what it is. They'll qualify through on day two. Now, Snazy, Poldasai, Grolls, and Clown, I think, are too good not to qualify. They'll find a way to make it work. Lucy and Steno, they're a Northside team, aren't they? Oh, they qualified last chance. Did they? Bro. Oh, yeah, here they are. So they play that same Bolts and Thoric split. I think that'll be another place that is fairly open. Again, if they struggle, they will have problems. I really am being biased towards the middle of that map. I think some teams are going to have to qualify. And whether or not I'm right or wrong, well, that's up to me. So I get to make the rules. I want to see Senate qualify. I don't know that it happens. I also do want to see Clicks and Epic Whale in there. I think Alex and Worthy are a really good team from OCE. Gonna put Sorf in there as well. DeGuerra and Persa, I think, are another solid team. Now, this is showing my bias towards the Asia and Middle East regions, but hey, sorry, I can't watch all that Fortnite. We get 3 more teams left. I don't think anyone landing over here is going to do well. Sorry, Snazy and Podesai. Again, another team with Gotago probably watching them. Good for the game. Don't see it happening. Death and Tahi. I think Ritual and Reek can find a way to do well 2 games. They're like a hot and cold team, so we'll throw them in. Let's give a QNDX Rapid. Where is QNDX and Rapid going? Zone never pulls that way. Zone is like almost always going to the eastern side of the map, but let's say they get a couple of zones. We'll give them 1. And the last team, now granted I'm probably wrong on some of these, and unfortunately some people have to come out. Bully and Shadow, I feel like Bully been playing really well recently. Gonna give him the nod. So this is our 50 team finals. Now we'll just move some teams to the top 5. I think there is little to no discussion. I think Seti and Cammy, easy top 3 team. And I don't say easy like it's actually easy, but I think it's easy to put them in the top 3. Queasy Veno, Booga Threats is another one, especially if they get this whole place up in Sanguine unconned. Gonna give them some nice rotates to the south through this water. I think they'll be all right there. I want to go Rise Niamzo, but this is a team that has struggled in big time moments, and I don't know that in the biggest moment that they figure it out. So not going to put them in the top 10. Taysom or Stash, I got to give it to them. I think if they're able to get North Slappy uncon, they will figure it out. Slappy tends to trade Surge from both sides, so I think that's a huge advantage to both teams. And I'm going to put one more team that is not NA or EU, and that's going to be where's Pegazine and Kitos. So I think that will be our top 5. Not in that order. Arguably, it could be any of them in first place. But I think these teams will be able to figure it out. Now, as far as top 10 goes, I think Rise Niamzo, Trulix Chicho, Acorn Cold, those are pretty solid to me. I want to go Cooper Miro, but I don't know. I haven't seen it at LAN. We haven't seen Cooper on LAN. I think that will play a factor. And Miro last year didn't do so hot. I don't know. That might just be me overthinking it. Then I think we'll see a team out of the day 2 qualify. And if I had to pick, I don't know. Genuinely, I don't know. I think we'll probably see another team from a non-NA or EU region come through. Who is that? I don't know. I really don't, guys. This is tough to like pick teams. I think of Vico and Pink. I almost called them Vinco. That'd be a pretty cool name though. Vinco. If you guys need a name, go Vinco. Then I want to go Polo and Sphinx. So we're going to go a People Clip and Zagu top 10, even though it's not top 10. And the rest of these, anything after top 10 is kind of just up in the air. Now, I don't know how much everyone's been practicing. I don't know how much everyone has prepared. And ultimately, 6 games, a lot of things can happen. The teams that are conned are going to perform poorly. Teams that are unconned typically are going to do better. So, granted, one team could get fed 12 elims off spawn and win every single off spawn, and that's just how the tournament goes. We will see them in the top 10. That's kind of my projections as far as the event. But for top 5, I think Pegazine, Kitos, Taysom or Stash, Buga Threats, Seti Kami, Queasy Veno. That is the top 5 favorites, I think, coming into the event. Rise Yamzo, Trulex Chicho, Acorn Cold, Vico Pink, Polo Sphinx, and Peppo and Zagu are the teams that I think could kind of finish right in that next tier. There will be other teams that get in there. There's no way I get all these right. Nonetheless, it's all right. Some surprise teams that, you know, may not have that big name value. I think a Quanti TK, Bryce Chubbs, Gripe Flixie, another team that could surprise, Blotch of Mixin, a Source and Yumi, another team that I think could do well. Mishatini, I think this could be good for them if they're able to do enough homework to do what they do. Just be a very strange duo that causes problems for teams. So those are kind of the surprise teams I would look out for. I think Baka and Pars could do well as well. I just don't think they would be really a surprise anymore. So let's go over, now that we've kind of done our like predictions for the event. Let's go over some players that joined some new orgs. A lot of mix up. Basically all the players trying to get signed, all the teams trying to get some representation before this event. The big one is going to be Monaco Esports. Picked up a ton of Brazilian talent. So AXADSZ. Don't know how to pronounce that. I'm sorry. I don't know. I don't know how that's said. Edson, Gaberza, and Zeet. All those players have been picked up for the event. Don't believe all of them have qualified. Nonetheless, they will be there for Copenhagen, representing Monaco. And then we had a weird situation where Reno from Become Legends pretty much put out a tweet saying, hey, me and the ownership had a disagreement. We don't come to see eye to eye on things, and because of that, I'm going to be stepping away. And then the following week, we see Mixin, Carmi, and Vanyak all dropped, left, whatever it may be. They're not on Become Legends anymore. So to me, that says exactly what the disagreement was. Reno's like, why would we get rid of them right before the biggest event in Fortnite? Or if they weren't signed through that time, someone did some poor math and didn't sign them the correct amount of time. Or they couldn't come to a new agreement based on qualifying for this event. So that is what it is. Mixin is now on Twisted Minds. Carmi is on Legends Esport. Twisted Minds is out of believe it's a Middle Eastern org. It's Saudi Arabian. There we go. And then Legends Esports is based out of Qatar. So a couple of teams represented. We've seen a lot of representation from Middle Eastern teams getting involved in Fortnite. Obviously, they already have a ton of Middle Eastern talent, but now getting involved in other regions, including Twisted Minds, also picked up Sphinx. Sphinx have been looking for an org. Happy to see him get it. Rejoined Agent Gaming. That was earlier last week, and he's another player from NA. Guild picked up Blacha at the end of September, and then Chicho recently, a couple days ago. Click said that he was signing to a new org. We haven't seen what org it is. My guess is it's FaZe. They're going to have the FaZe Epic Whale and FaZe Clicks. I don't really know many other orgs unless they're paying him way too much money that it makes sense for. Could also see Monaco do it the way they're spending money. Nonetheless, we still have to see how that turns out. Has yet to be announced what exactly it will be. We do know that I believe it was last Thursday or Friday. I think it was the 6th. So whatever the players' names were in game, that is what they were going to be locked at. So last Friday, whatever Clix' name was in game is probably whatever his org is. So if anyone has Clix on his friends list, go take a look, see who is in front of Clix, and yeah, go for that. That goes for all these players. So we're gonna see a couple of other announcements, I believe, over the coming days, but they should all have been completed before then. Otherwise, they're not going to be represented in game. And I think that's a solid cutoff. A week before the event starts, you have to be solidified. And if you're an org, that's all on you for not getting that done. The last one that we're going to talk about, even though there is a few more, I'll just read a couple of them quickly. But last notable one to me is Thomas HD joining Heroic. It's a CS org based in Denmark, so only makes sense for Thomas HD, arguably the greatest Danish player of all time, to be signed to a Danish org to represent the org in Copenhagen, in Denmark, for the biggest Fortnite event in the world. I mean, Thomas, hey, you got to put the country on your back, though, dog. Got to do it. We'll see if he's able to, and it'll be interesting. So I have just this up. We have a few other teams. N-Star picked up a couple of people. Who was the big one that I was trying to mention? Gyrus or Gragas. I don't know exactly. G13RAS. Then we got Vasky joining ETP or Entropic. Fanajin joined Arcadia. Vink. Ju joined Swift. Swift picked up a couple of players. Ju is the notable one. That's JUU. And then just a few other signings that happened throughout the week. Teeny, or I guess last month, Teeny joined Evoza. A bunch of the Russian-speaking players joined. It's FTOYD. Don't really know exactly what that is. We see Ritual left. Honor last month. Again, I just don't know how exactly you don't have your players signed through this event. Reciprocal joined Prodigy. Not really notable. Sorry, just reading through some of these, seeing if there's anything of note. Nah, I think we're good. I got all the notable ones. Thought I did, but just want to make sure. Now, lastly, let's just talk about my expectations for the event, what we kind of expect going into next year, and a little bit of wrap up. If you guys have any questions, if I said anything, you're like, what the hell does this guy mean? Go ahead, throw it in the comments. DM me on Twitter, at me on Twitter, at somebody's gun. Went through a lot, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. Last year, the FNCS Invitational one was one of the most listened to podcasts, so I hope this is enjoyable once again. My overall expectations for the event, though, I do think this will be extremely meaningful for the Fortnite community. Sorry, my voice cracked. I've been talking for almost an hour. I think the event will be awesome. The players will have a phenomenal time. And I think the event itself will be really good for the morale of Fortnite. I think coming out of this, we'll see a bunch of players motivated. I do think the unfortunate thing is we won't really have anything until next like February, because that's just typically how FNCS works. Once we get through the big event at the end of the year, end of January, earliest, likely February or March is when the next competitive season will start. We know it won't be December because Fortnite typically takes its break. It just doesn't make sense to put FNCS next year. Do you think we'll have FNCS? I know people saw the problems or layoffs, I guess, not problems, at Epic Games and kind of expected things to change. And while I do know that a couple of people from the competitive team were let go, I don't believe that is really going to affect anything. And I think we'll continue to see pretty much what we saw this year. I think Fortnite is going to see that this is a good driver of interest towards the game, and ultimately that's what they're trying to do. They want people to play the game, they want people to buy skins, they want people to buy stuff in the shop, and I think this event will do that. The Fortnite or the FNCS skins for this event are sick. I think they are the coolest skins they've put out so far, and I think Fortnite's going to do a good job marketing them. Hopefully they continue. Probably see a few ads for the skins throughout the tournament. And ultimately, I expect next year to be, if not bigger, the same, but I think will be slightly bigger next year as far as like the big event at the end of the year. That's just my opinion. And just to wrap up expectations while I'm still here ranting for you guys. I think it'll be awesome. I don't see, as much as I may have a problem with the format, I don't think it leads to the best event possible. I think the practice has been subpar. I think none of that will matter come the tournament, and I think everyone will still have a great time. I think the viewership will be great. I'm not going to put a number on it because it doesn't freaking matter. Yeah, I think whether you go to the event, whether you're watching at home, whether you're a player, just a fan, all of it will be awesome. I think the event will go off really well. And that's generally how I see things going. Hopefully that's correct, because I think everything will go well. And whether or not we have a similar thing next year will be determined, but I think we will. And, that's where we're at. I do believe that this is a great event for the players themselves to put a stamp on where they are in their careers. The players that are able to do that and solidify themselves among the best, I really hope they're able to use that. We talked about this on the Fortnite podcast with Monster and Panda, but news outlets in local countries also love to cover this kind of stuff. So if you're a player that has won, several $100,000, might want to reach out to some local news stations, try and get some coverage. Use this event to boost yourself and your value and your career, because really the goal should be, one, to perform really well, but two, to make this a long career that you can make a ton of money from, have fun, be successful, and enjoy. And I know it's not that easy, but that's what I hope these players do. Just take advantage of it. I hope to see some great media coverage of it. I will be tweeting as much as I can during the event. Haven't said this publicly, but if you're still listening at the end of this podcast, we're about an hour in. I'm about to have my first child, so it could be that I don't even really watch the event, or I'm chilling at home with my baby girl and we're hanging out watching Fortnite together, just taking care of her. So we'll see. I hope everything works out. I can watch it all. I can enjoy the event. Nonetheless, things happen. I hope you guys all enjoy the event. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know at Somebody's Gun on X, and please leave a review. Really appreciate it. Hope to get some more gets in the coming weeks. Probably won't be scheduling something because, like I just told you guys, I've been ready for my child and I don't want to have to bail on somebody. So after Invitational, we'll get some things scheduled. And thank you guys for listening. This has been the FN Story, a little preview of FNCS Global Championship. Have fun at the event, guys. And oh, one more thing. I have a sick guide of what to do in Copenhagen. Might be too late for you guys if you just left, but check that out. It's on X. It's on my profile at Somebody's Gun. See you guys. Peace.